We have a lot of early birds. Thank you for joining. And we have our facilitators who have also joined us today. Thank you, Oyeyemi. Thank you, Florence. We are happy to have you. Before we start, can we have a few minutes where our attendees can post in the chat room where they're joining us from, and also to mention the name of their business? So you will be mentioning your name of your business and where you're joining us from, so that we can have an idea of the kind of audience we're expecting or that we're having and where they're coming from. Let's use the next couple of minutes to keep the chat box buzzing. Thank you. Good morning, Olushola, Shoemi. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining from Okbai Farms. We'd like to see other people introduce themselves and let us know where they're joining us from. Thank you. Okay, good morning, Olaniyan. Thank you for joining us. I see you, Alaba Edu. I see you, Azizat. Thank you. Thank you, Edith. Thank you, Chibogu. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ekene. Thank you, Celestina. Thank you. We hope that we'll keep this chat box very active for the rest of the session, because it's really going to be an interactive session.
Yeah, this is Florence. I'm joining from Nigeria for promotion.
Okay, good morning, Miss Florence. I would introduce you shortly. Let me just round up with the introduction first. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. Okay, so we can start. It's 11:04. Good morning again, everyone. Thank you for joining today's masterclass session on export readiness and regulatory requirements. My name is Taiwo Olaniyan, and I head the business support unit here at the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. I'll be moderating today's session. I would like to appreciate our business owners who have joined today's session from different parts of Lagos. Thanks for the introductions. And we're happy to have you here. And I believe before we commence, it will be good to introduce what we do at LSETF and why these masterclass sessions are very important to us. The Lagos State Employment Trust Fund was established in the year 2016 with the mandate to prepare Lagos State residents for entrepreneurship and employment opportunities. And we do that through skills acquisition, we tackle unemployment, and we also try to enable wealth creation. Our work is centered on 3 strategic pillars. We provide access to markets for our beneficiaries by helping to connect them to their end users. We also provide access to affordable finance through our different loan programs for MSMEs in Lagos State, and we also do a lot on capacity building trainings. This masterclass session is one of our capacity building initiatives where we bring in experts to deliver on topics that resonate with a lot of business owners. So about today's masterclass session, like I said, it's a capacity building initiative where we want to provide a deeper understanding into export and also trade, into export and trade, especially for business owners who are looking to start running their businesses beyond the shores of Nigeria. We have 2 amazing facilitators in persons of Mrs. Florence Ofonedu-Okafor. I hope I pronounced your name well. I am sorry if I did not. From the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. And we also have Mrs. Oyeyemi Emmanuel from TEMPLARS Law Firm. Thank you both for honoring our invitation to facilitate today's session. I would now leave the floor open to Mrs. Florence to take the floor. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please ask as many questions as you like. The Q&A session. The Q&A chat box is going to be enabled. So once the facilitation starts, you can type in your questions for either of the facilitators. And after the session, we will take questions and answers. Thank you all. Mrs. Florence, over to you.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good morning.
Yeah, Florence from the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. We're happy you invited us to the party. Are you still hearing me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can we,
Okay.
participants, can you hear her? Please kindly put in the chat box if you can hear the facilitator. Thank you. Yes, you can. They can hear you. You can proceed, ma. Okay, welcome back, Miss Florence.
Yeah, I don't know the topic coming and going and all that. My presentation to her, but if it's not available right now, I can share from where I am. Allow me.
Sorry, come again. I didn't hear you, ma.
I sent my presentation to her. So
Okay, yes. I'm going to project. I'll project your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay. So let's get to the introduction, please. From them.
Okay, your slides are on.
I didn't.
Ma, your slides are live. You can proceed. Just let me know.
I'm not seeing it myself. Yeah, okay. Well, introduction, the requirement for registration as an exporter, export procedures, export documentation, costing and pricing, packaging, exportable products from Nigeria. Then let's get to the introduction. Are you there now? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, I'm at the introduction. Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Oyeyemi. Hello?
I can hear you now, ma'am.
Okay.
I can hear you clearly.
Introduction. Can I go on? Okay. Nigerian Export Promotion Council is a federal government agency that was established in 1976 and charged with the sole responsibility of promoting and development of non-oil exports and to diversify the nation's economy through provisions of technical assistance to export-oriented industries, promotion of public-private partnership, organization of sensitization programs, capacity building, administration of post-export incentives, offering advisory services, disseminating information on market trends, and liaising with commodity associations with a view of identifying products for export development. Are you still hearing me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you. I think we've lost her.
Our vision. Can you hear? Are you still hearing me? I'm not hearing anything. Are you people hearing me?
We can hear you.
Yeah. Yes, that is our vision to make the world a marketplace for Nigerian products. Then our mission to diversify the Nigerian economy by expanding and increasing non-oil export for sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Export procedures. The procedure is a formal process in the conduct of international trade. Getting started as an exporter, the thing expected of you as an exporter needs to conduct a feasibility study and consider the availability of the following before hello. Yeah. Human resources, marketing resources. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. Yeah. Who can register as an exporter with the Nigerian Export Promotion Council? Well, for you to register in Nigeria as an exporter with Nigerian Export Promotion Council, you must have a limited liability company, or it could be a cooperative society, or government or non-government organizations. A potential exporter could register online by scanning and uploading required documents into the council's website, which is www.nepc.gov.ng, and carefully follow the step-by-step procedures or instructions. Then financial requirements. Obtaining an export certificate involves some costs, excluding remitter and bank charges. The new certificate is 13,500. If your certificate expires after 2 years, it's 7,500. Late certificate renewal after 3 months. If your certificate expires 3 months after the expiration, you will pay 12,500. If it is mutilated, it will be the same 12,500. Next slide, please. Yeah, document required for registration as an exporter. You must have a limited liability company that is being registered with CAC. The CAC that gives you the certificate that will enable you register. Ventures or enterprise or something cannot register, because we are talking of international business here. So for you to do your registration, you must have a limited liability company. And limited liability company is if you have copy of memorandum of article of association of your company, a copy of also from CAC 1.1 section C, which is used to be particulars of directors before it was changed to CAC 7. The board resolution to register company with Nigerian Export Promotion Council sale affects. Next slide, please. Next slide. For cooperative societies, if you have a cooperative society, that's when you come together as a cooperative society, you know there are things you are supposed to present. Certificate of registration with the State Ministry of Commerce, Federal Development Authority, cooperative bylaws. Then for government or non-government organizations, certificate of registration by the Corporate Affairs Article of Association, laws of establishing the agency. Next slide, please. Next slide. Export documentation. Statutory is a number of documents accompany every shipment. There must be the right documents. The following documents are required in handling export consignment. However, they vary depending on the product involved and export destination. for ease of understanding export documentation, it can be classified into 5 categories. These: pro forma invoice. Next slide, please. Pro forma invoice, commercial invoice, consular invoice, certified invoice, packing list. This pro forma invoice is usually what you send to the person importing from you. That is where you put all the documents ahead. The document is issued as a form of quotation and oftentimes required by government of importer for the purpose of foreign exchange allocation. Then commercial invoice. This is an accounting document prepared by the exporter in the name of the importer or his agent. It takes care of charges to enable customs in the importing country assess the duty payable for that product. Then the commercial document, consular invoice. This is an official form obtaining in the consulate of the country of destination. It enables invoice to be validated or checked by importing country's consulate. Certified invoice. This invoice is needed for independent verification. Example: certified invoice by the Chamber of Commerce, declaration of origin of goods and value, and so on. Then packing list. Packing list, the document supplements the commercial invoice when quantities, weights, or contents of individual units in a shipment vary. Then certificate of origin, obtained from Chambers of Commerce. Next slide, please. Yes. Quality document. Yeah, certificate of quality and fumigation, phytosanitary certificate, NAFDAC certificate of quality, certificate of quality by some, then ISO certification. Next slide. Next slide. A certificate of quality fumigation. These are the certificate of quality fumigation. It's a Federal Produce Inspection Service issues, FPIRS, issues this certificate for all primary agricultural commodities for export as evidence of quality. While phytosanitary certificate, this certificate may be required when fruits, vegetable, flower plants, and plant products are being exported. The certificate confirms that the goods are pest-free and disease-free. The certificate is issued by the Plant Quarantine Services Organization with the head office located at Moore Plantation in Ibadan with branches at all seaports in Nigeria. Next slide, please. Next slide. Continuation. Next slide. No. Quality document continue. Back to quality document continue, please. Back. Yeah. No. National Agency for Food, Drug and Administration. At least everybody knows that from NAFDAC, please. Everybody knows NAFDAC. You know, if you are doing food, you must have certificate from NAFDAC. Any goods you are doing that has to do with food. Now, if that NAFDAC does not give you certification, you may not be able to export it. And also, if wherever you are exporting to, you also have to find out in that country what is requirement of their own food and drugs. Like if you are sending goods to the United States, you must have the FDA for you to be able to send your goods to the United States. Then in Europe also, there is a requirement in various countries, not just like London, England, UK have their own, then the rest of Europe also have their own. So if you are sending your goods to all these places, you must be aware of this certificate. So that it's not when you send this thing, they will turn it back or seize it and destroy it, that you have to pay for the destruction also. Let's go to transport document, please. Next slide, please. Let's go to transport document. Transport document, please. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, next slide, first NAFDAC. Can you hear me, please? Yes, transport. Yeah. And for you to do international business involves a lot of movement of your goods. So it depends on what country you are taking it to and how you are supposed to take the goods. Transport documents remaining, you must need a bill levying. You must have, if it's going by air, it's airway bill. If it's by road, like if you're moving goods from here now to Cotonou, or you know you will need roadway bill. Then National Maritime Authority form also. Then single goods declaration form also. All this you will also fill. Then let's go to the financial documents. Yeah, the next in form, Nigerian export proceeds, the financial documents. The Nigerian export proceeds form is to be used by all exporters in declaring export quantity and the value to facilitate the repatriation and export proceeds. This form is issued by CBN and obtained from the commercial or merchant bank. This form is very, very important if you are doing export business. If you don't declare this, you might not be able to repatriate your goods. And when you don't repatriate your goods, there are a lot of things you are supposed to benefit when you repatriate your goods, when you are registered with Nigeria Export Promotion Council. So if you don't repatriate your goods, they will not know you are doing export. Nobody will give you anything. The benefit you are supposed to have, you cannot. So it's very important to get this form, this NXP form. Then the form is to be completed in 6 copies with clear instructions that back on how it should be distributed. Then the certificate of insurance. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is an insurance certificate covering the value of the goods exported. It has to be the proceeds by the exporter when the contract is on CIF. When this is to say, when you have this, if you don't have this, you may not be able to even your money, because it is what you enter in your document that will determine whether the person you are exporting to will be able to pay you or not. And again, you must be up and doing. Export business is about documentation. If you don't document well, you don't get your proceeds back. A lot of people have that challenge. And we don't want anybody who is part of export to be having this challenge. It is important. It's not just I want to export, I want to export. Please, if you are exporting, do the right thing so that your money can come back. And there's a lot of benefit also from government. You cannot benefit if you don't have all these things in place. So when you do all this, that you can get your benefit back. Next slide, please. Costing. Next slide, please. Costing. Costing and pricing are the most crucial area in export business. Both are backbone in every business as such and are highly indispensable. You cannot be saying you are doing export and you are not doing your costing well. How do you make your money? How do you get those things that are very important to you? You do all your production, you do everything, you put your money, everything, and you send it back. You didn't cost well. Maybe if you cost, like now you see that the dollar is fluctuating. And maybe today you do your costing. Maybe you did it with maybe dollar is now 700, and you do your costing with 700, and tomorrow dollar becomes 1,000 or 800 and something. Can't you see you are at a loss? So sometimes you look at the forecast where you forecast well in your financing so that it will help you to, so that at the end of the day you don't lose. At least you'll be within the margin of your profit, whatever it is that you have done. Costs come as a result of any attempt to a business, even before the procurement and processing stage. Therefore, one must take sure he or she factors all related costs to make sure he or she runs viable transactions, more especially when you are dealing with bank facilities. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Here we are. Packaging. This is another important thing when it comes to export business. If you are exporting, ensure that the country you are exporting to, you conform with whatever they need. Packaging is one of the major parts of export. Packaging of product must be at best to meet the buyer's needs, quality, and specification. You must know what the buyer wants, how he wants it to be packaged, how it conforms with his country's standards. Is very important. For agricultural products, you can either be packaged in boxes, bags, and so on. That is primary, secondary, or tertiary form. Manufactured products should either be in primary, secondary or tertiary form. That is to say, whatever product you are doing, you must know what type of packaging that best suits that product, so that when you export it, it won't be that damage on the road, or that this and that, or that before it gets to wherever it is going, it has issues. No, it is very important. Packaging is one of the crucial things in export business. Next slide, please. These are some exportable products in Nigeria. You know, the commodities. For commodity, you have leather, cashew, charcoal, cocoa, rubber, gum, Arabic, soya beans, spices, coffee, shea butter, cotton, chilies, etc. For manufactured goods, pharmaceutical, wood products, fruit juice, palm kernel cake, electrical wires, palm kernel oil, detergent, plastics. Solid minerals, copper, lead, colon, iron, precious stone, etc. Art and craft, carving, leatherwork, painting, etc. Services. This is one of the areas Nigeria is really making waves, even though some of them are not being recorded, or some of them are not being seen, but we all know out there in the world. Like, I don't know if some of you watched Buga at the World Cup when Chris Daniel was in the one of the arenas and was singing. You'll be proud to be a Nigerian when you saw the crowd of people who were dancing that his latest music. So I was proud watching him. These are the exports nobody notices, but these are the exports that gives us all the wow that we need right now in Nigeria. You know, services, the tourism, ICT, professional services, consultants, training, translators, cooks, hairdressers, designers, etc. These are things we also export. Then these are the exportable. Next slide, please. Yeah, these are things that are exportable. You can see them for yourself. You can see them. These are people's products. This man, this lion cashew is making wave around the world. You'll be surprised. When you see it, you won't even believe it's in Nigeria. These are things we can export. You know, these are things you can really export and in Nigeria from any part of Nigeria. And like you know, Nigeria Export Promotion Council is doing everything within its power to ensure that this economy is really being diversified. We have a lot of things going on right now. You know, we have making it easier for exporters. We have a domestic export. We have what that stands for. A lot of exporters don't know where to sell their goods or how to move their goods from wherever in the country to the wharf to transport their goods. On this bill that the Nigerian Export Promotion Council has just incorporated, in collaboration with other people, other agencies of government that will facilitate export, like the customs, the Nigerian Ports Authority, NAFDAC, SON. All these agencies are with us so that we can we look at it as one-stop shop. If you carry your goods and get to the warehouse, and all these agencies are there. It's not when you come here, you see NEPC. The other place you see custom. By the time you move, everybody will be disturbing you. At that one-stop shop, all the agencies will look at your goods and certify it for export, and nobody will disturb you. From that warehouse straight to the ship. That is what DUE stands for. We also have export warehouses right now in 3 African countries. We have in Egypt, we have in Kenya, and we have in Togo. You can move your goods from Nigeria to any of these warehouses outside the country. Then those people that you put your goods there, then from there, our embassy or those who need us can always reach out through these warehouses to carry your goods or require what you want, and they will reach out to you through these export warehouses, you know. Then the list of prohibited items. Please, next slide. Next slide. Yeah, these are items that you cannot export now. We don't have enough meat, so we are not exporting. Scrap metal, you see people carry every day that people are picking up. They're actually something you are not supposed to export. But you know, we have a way of doing. Nigerians don't do things right. This scrap metal, you see people every day picking this, picking that. Some of them are not supposed to be, but they are still exporting them. They are actually prohibited items. Then rough or swan wood are also not prohibited. Wild animals, you are not supposed to export them. Artifacts, like you saw now that they are returning the artifacts they stole from Benin 200 years ago from Britain and Germany, wherever they are, they took them to. So those things are not supposed to be moved by like that. So you can see some of them still are being returned. Then raw hides and skin, you are not supposed to export it like that, except all these tenaries. The tenaries are those people who are actually certified to move these goods to wherever it's going to be, especially hides and skin. Then unprocessed rubber, you are not supposed to also export processed rubber. Finally, hello, the conclusion. Nigeria non-oil export has immense opportunities, and this should spur us in being part of the export business community. For more information and further advice on NEPC activities, please check the website below and email your request accordingly. Website www.nepc.gov.ng. Our email is info@nepc.gov.ng. Thank you very much. I wanted to also thank you, but I also wanted to say, if you really want to register with Nigerian Export Promotion Council, if you want to register with us, it's very easy. 24 hours, you get your certificate. You can do it in your bedroom, anywhere you are. Just log into our website. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the insights as it relates to items we can export from Nigeria and items we are prohibited from exporting in Nigeria. I was shocked to find that we are unable to export artifacts. I thought those are the kind of things that foreigners like to see, like our African artifacts and stuff.
They do, but because of the challenges we are having, some of these things, they steal them and take them away. There are some artifacts, some pictures or some art that you can really get and you can move it legally. But there are things you can't move. If you get to the airport, they will collect it from you, seriously. Check. So there are things you just can't move anyhow. And like I said, our certificate is there now. You can get it anytime and 24 hours, as long as you have a limited liability company or you have a cooperative. So you have for SMEs. I'm talking to SMEs. Some of them may not be able to have their own personal registration of their company. So if they can form a cluster and have a kind of cooperative, they can use that to register with Nigeria Export Promotion Council. And there's so much to benefit from Nigeria Export Promotion Council, sincerely.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you. Please stay on the session while we introduce our next facilitator, who will be taking us on other aspects on exports related matter. Oyeyemi, thank you for staying on. Welcome, and it's your floor now.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. It's a great privilege to be here. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ofonedu-Okafor, for your session and for laying the foundation. I think that what you've done is give us the rudiments in terms of what we need to do. I think, there's really not much to add, because the procedure is one thing, but who you are and how you qualify for that is another thing. So I want to speak to who the company should be. An exporting company should have a certain profile, and I have slides of just 5 pages. I honestly don't need it. I think I would just run this way, and if you have any questions, I've been looking at the questions that you have been putting in the chat room, and if you have any questions, we'll take it. I would defer to Mrs. Ofonedu-Okafor for the questions relating to the procedure, because she's giving us all the information we need on that. I will handle issues relating to law, your entity, registering your entity, managing your entity, and then the softer issues around preparing for export. So the export market is wide, and to get into it, there's actually a mindset. And I think that is why one of the major requirements that the NEPC requires is the registration of a limited liability company. They could have done it in a way that either individuals or, say, business names could register. But I believe that the NEPC is holding exporters to a higher standard of compliance. And that's why the primary requirement is that you be established as a limited liability company. And not just that, from a governance perspective as well. And when I say governance, I mean who the shareholders are, who the directors are. There is a reason for accountability, because when it becomes export is different. There are different issues that come up, language differences, regulation differences. For instance, I will give you an example, and I hope that you do not forget this example as you prepare. If you are a manufacturer of chewing gum, you cannot export your chewing gum to Singapore. Why? Singapore criminalizes chewing gum. You can be arrested for chewing gum in Singapore. You can be jailed for chewing gum in Singapore. So if you make chewing gum, your chewing gum cannot go to Singapore, because Singapore is not a destination that is friendly to your product, right? So the export area is first a knowledge. You need to first go on a fact-finding process, especially if we're looking at Africa, for instance. Africa has 55 countries, and in 2021, these 55 countries went into an agreement called the Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is supposed to help facilitate trade, free trade amongst all the countries, and make it easy for us to move things from Lagos to Accra, Accra to Senegal, across like that. And the first thing is, what you are selling, is it acceptable to import those things into the country that you're taking them to? That will be the first question. You need to have that information. And before I end, I will recommend some learning platforms that give you all of those details, and also partners that you can engage who can help you to establish your presence in whatever countries you're looking at. So there's first the fact finding. What am I producing? Can I sell it in the countries that I'm looking at? What countries can I sell it to? For instance, a lot of our designers have found a market outside Nigeria. Ashoke is being exported, maybe not commercially, but in units. People are buying it. If you go online now, you would see people wearing it in Zimbabwe, wearing Ashoke, wearing our own traditional wear. Right? That is the opportunity that the export market gives. It's really wide, but you need to know which one is for you and the products that you are making. If you are taking a product that is banned in Ghana, you already have triggered a barrier for your product, right? And there are other barriers as well, like standards. The standards that we have in Nigeria may be different from the standards that are applied in that country. So you may travel now and you see that the Fanta in Nigeria is different from the Fanta in Ghana, or is different from the Fanta in Senegal, right? There are different standards, right? Another point is, well, also the customs procedure. So like with us, when we import, customs checks the product. NAFDAC also checks the product if it is food. Standards organization already tests the product before it is even brought in, right? So similar to that procedure, other countries have those kind of conditions. You also have currency differences, the Naira and the cedis, the Naira and the dollar, the Naira and the Zimbabwean dollar, the Naira and whatever currency you're dealing with. There will be exchange rules, there will be exchange issues, there will be matters relating to transfer. For instance, if you're leaving Nigeria, you need to declare if you have over $10,000 with you in cash, right? So the same thing with those kind of countries, you would also have those kind of rules. So it's before you even go to the law or the procedure, there is the knowledge of your products and how it relates to the market that you are going to. So the first rule for export readiness is research. The first rule for export readiness is research. You need to research what country accepts your products, what country allow, and in what form your product is accepted. So for instance, if you're carrying live snails to Mauritius, they would seize the snails at the airport. You can't carry live animals from Nigeria. You can't export live animals like snails to a Mauritius, for instance. But if you freeze them and you put them in a bag and it is food and it's frozen and packed up, wrapped up in a bag, it could be let in, right? So the form in which the product is also being exported matters as well. So before you, I know someone who was looking to set up in, say, Rwanda or Ghana, and they had to do research and find a partner. And that partner is not necessarily to take over your business or enter into business with you. It's actually to give you information on the regulatory space there. You can also, the NEPC has contact offices as well. They have corresponding offices in many of these countries. So you can, through, and the NEPC operates right now as a one-stop shop where you can get information about all of these products that you're seeking to transmit. So you can actually engage the NEPC saying, I want to export this in this format to this country. Please confirm if this is acceptable, and then you can be put in contact with third parties who are in those countries who can help you find your food. So the first rule is research. You need to know, and we can't exhaust all the details now. If you go online, for every country, there is an import prohibition list. So you can take that list and use it as a guide. So if you go online now and you check Ghana prohibition list, you would see it. So the products that are prohibited in Ghana, you would see them and you'll be able to know, oh, my product cannot be flown to Ghana, my product cannot be sent to Ghana, or I would need to change the format if I am sending it to Ghana. You know, for their countries, their companies who export shea oil from Ghana to Nigeria in different formats. There are companies in Nigeria who also export black soap, for instance, to Ghana and to other African countries. They have to research that the product in itself is acceptable. So that's rule one. The research is rule one. You need to know that your product fits whatever market you're targeting. And if you're seeking to take advantage of the African expansion under the free trade, the Continental Free Trade Agreement, then you want to be checking out what African countries you're sending your product to and what would be acceptable as the format. That is speaking to your product and the format. Now, speaking to you, you must be a limited liability company. It is ideal that at the point of export that you have key officers in the company. And one is an officer who is very versed in matters relating to export management, customs management, and risk. The reason this is the case is because liability is higher when it comes to export matters, because you're dealing with different jurisdictions, different countries. It is important that whatever risk that you are undertaking is properly dimensioned. You're not just going into a country where you can now be liable personally, or even your officers can be liable, or your products can be seized, right? So you would need to have to hire one person or be that person who has that information internally. The person will be in charge of managing relations across board, across your your own entity and the export, the countries into which you seek to export your products. I don't need to speak to language differences. I know if you have someone who has language capacity, that's always an advantage, right? For your company, you should have a sound board of directors. I think when your company has scaled to the point of export, your company should no longer be a mom and pop shop where it is you, your brother, your sister, and aunties that are on the board. You need to get people that have either done it before or have significant knowledge of the areas in which you are seeking to expand. So your board fit must change as well. Also, you can also look at, because export is expensive, you can consider expanding via shareholding, right? Getting more shareholders on board, getting more investors on board. And when you're bringing such investors on board, immediately it triggers matters relating to shareholders agreements, contracts, and possibly even franchises with people that you're engaging, depending on your choice or the method that you want to use to expand into these new countries. So if you're entering into shareholders agreements, then you need to make sure that you are looking at key terms on management, procedure, board powers, how you manage your own interest as the person who founded the company, ensuring that your shares are not diluted if that is your objective, ensuring that there is authorization first before transfer of shares is done for any of the shareholders, ensuring that shareholders are also properly briefed on the business of the company so they can make smart decisions. So these are some of the things that will begin to come up when you begin to think of export. Because it's expensive, you may also look at taking up loans. And if you're taking up loans, again, you enter into another realm, which is the realm of loan agreements with, say, banks, the NEPC, endowment funds, grant organizations, cooperative societies. And in those contracts, you need to make sure that you're not taking obligations that are going to undermine your business or prevent your business from growing. You're taking up obligations that are reasonable, that are within your capacity, that the entity can be accountable for. Right? So those are some of the some of the legal considerations that will come up. Because it is expensive, you begin to think of increased financing. If it is equity, you will need new shareholders and you will need to contract shareholders agreements with them. If it is debt, you will need to take up loans and you will need to look at different organizations that give you loans. So all of those agreements are new agreements that your company will have to sign. And that is why you cannot do it alone. You must construct a board that is able to understand the complications that are beginning to enter your business. Mrs. Ofonedu-Okafor has spoken to all of the issues relating to compliance, the documents you need to file, the documents you need to submit, submission on the NEPC platform, registration on NXP. All of those things are very rudimentary. They're not significant. They're not. It's like a stack of cards. You just move them one after the other because they're compliance issues. But from a legal perspective, as an entity, you first need to have knowledge of the space that you are going to, understanding as to whether your product is accepted in that country and the format in which it's accepted. Third, your board as constructed must have knowledge of the business, because that is what will protect you when liability comes. Because business in Nigeria it's different from doing business all around the world. Another question that you may want to be thinking of is how you want to go into those countries. There are different ways through which you can export your products. You can either set up another entity in that country, and that entity will be fully owned by the entity in Nigeria, such that you now have a parent company in Nigeria with a subsidiary or many other subsidiaries in other countries. That means you're making a lot of money because it is expensive to set up that way, right? So you will need to, and if you set up that way, it means that you would be appointing, so let's say we are ABC Nigeria, and we want to set up ABC Ghana. ABC Ghana will have to have a CEO, will have to have a board, will have to have employees. So you would need to think about all of that compliance as well, right? If you're not going to set up in that country and you're going to just move products from here to there, in most countries, there is a requirement that there is a local agent that you partner with. In most countries, especially in Africa, there is a requirement that you partner with local agents for those kinds of products, to move your products. And when you're partnering with that local agent, you want to make sure it could either be that you're taking up shares in the local company, or it could be that you are partnering either through some back-end technical support or stock supplying agreement. And if you're doing that, you want to make sure that you are looking at clauses in your agreement like dispute resolution. Because if there's a dispute that comes up, what law will you use? Will it be Nigerian law, or will it be Ghanaian law, or will it be English law? All of those kind of questions will come up. If you feel that Nigerian law will protect you more, you can go ahead and retain Nigerian law in those kinds of contracts, because you are the one with the product as well. So apart from dispute resolution, things relating to stocking, right? Liability for logistics, the moving of the products. In export, logistics is such a big issue. It's a big issue because products can be received in a state and end up in another state when they are received at the point of import into whatever country you choose. So logistics is a big issue. And so you must dimension the risk. You know, you must dimension the risk. The risk is, am I the one who takes the risk from the beginning to the end? Or is there a point at which I transfer the risk for any damage to the products to my agent or my partner in the country that I'm moving the products to? In the age of e-commerce, you can now even ship products directly to recipients. That is, the way we buy things online. There's Jumia, there's Konga, right? You can sell on Konga, and what you are selling can be transferred from Lagos to Ghana, for instance, right? If that is the case, you want to make sure that whatever contracts you are entering into with whatever partners looks at the way the products are handled, that you don't take all the risk, or you are at risk when somebody else damages your product. That is very important. You must dimension that risk to ensure that your risk stops where your responsibility stops, and the risk is transferred where somebody else picks up the responsibility. That is very important. Those are the kinds of things that you'll be looking at when it comes into contracting. I've talked about financing, logistics. I've talked about compliance. Now, compliance is also important. Your certificates must be updated. So she talked, for instance, about the certificates you require for agri products, the certificates you require for NAFDAC regulated products, the certificates you require for standards organization regulated products, that is all products in general. It's important that you are updating those licenses as they expire. You are following up, you are checking the dates, and you are moving products with the right licenses. You are registering accurate information at every point in time, because those are the things that can create liability. So for a company to export, the company must be ready to scale. The demands are more, so you will need to take on more employees as well. And that means you would also have to have employment agreements that are safe for the company, address issues relating to salary, pay, responsibility, especially if you are now having employees across different jurisdictions. If you have an employee in Nigeria, you have an employee in Ghana, you have an employee in Singapore, etc. It means that you are at risk in all of these countries. And it is important that you are following the rules as they apply, as they arise. So in terms of legal considerations, it is really first, getting the right knowledge concerning your product. 2, choosing the right partners. 3, entering into the contracts that properly protect you. If you are raising money for financing through equity, shareholding, you must have a very fortified shareholders agreement that protects you. If you are taking debt, your loan agreement must protect you as well, and must not be one that has running obligations without end. If you're hiring employees or getting into partnerships with other people in other countries, then you want to have all these kinds of agreements, stockpile agreements, distribution agreements. If you're doing a franchise, you want to register your trademark. You want to make sure you register your trademark in Nigeria and in also the destination where you are selling that product, because trademark registration is territorial unless there are some regional agreements that you can take benefit of. But if you want to sell then your trademark must be registered, so that as you give rights to others, they don't steal your value and your goodwill, right? That's very, very important. Your trademarks must be registered. So if you are doing a franchise or a distribution agreement, the person that you're partnering with is not able to siphon your rights or abuse privilege that you give them. Of course, dealing with currency, knowing what the banking requirements are in that country, moving money and forex across the different countries, that will be very important. You cannot move money irresponsibly. For instance, here in Nigeria, if you are taking money from the CBN to fund the export or import of a product that is not authorized or eligible for that, you may be at risk. So those are the considerations in general. I think this is a good place to stop, and I saw that Taiwo had already turned on her camera, so I think it's a good place to stop, and then I can begin to take your questions. Thank you. I hope that was helpful.
Wow, thank you so much. I actually turned on my camera not to stop you, actually. I was really, literally enjoying this session. I took down a lot of notes, especially as it relates to those tips. As business owners who are seeking
I just remembered that I promised that I would share some information around courses that you can take. So the Afrexim Academy, Do you
want to chat, send it in the chat box so that they can get the information?
Yes,
and also someone is asking for your email address, contact, so they can reach out to you.
I'll put that. The Afrexim Academy actually has a course on how to export, especially under the AFCA, that is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. It's a 12-hour course. It's free. It will tell you the kind of challenges you would face when you are exporting. It will tell you the protections that you should have when you are exporting. It will give you financing options that you can take or you can get the benefit of when you are exporting. Someone is asking for the link. I think this is the link. So I have put it on the chat room, right? That's there. And then there's also a company called, I don't remember their name, but I think they're called Norbase. And what they do is, if for instance, you're trying to register in different countries or partner with people in different countries, they are able to give you contacts. They're able to give you and able to actually register you, register your trademark, and assist you with setting up in those other countries if you want to take that route. So those are the two suggestions that I had to help. But the AFEXIM Academy course is quite helpful on export readiness. I'll take the other questions going.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please don't forget to share your email address as well to the attendees. I really, like I said earlier, I learned a lot. I took down a lot of notes, and I'm sure our attendees were also taking notes, especially as it relates to those powerful tips you mentioned. You know, to start an exporting business, you have to start with research. You have to, for product fit, you have to research into the country, try to understand your own product in itself, to understand what you're producing, if it's going to be acceptable in this country, or what country is it going to be acceptable in. And then you mentioned partnership. Seeking partnership is also very important. You can't, there's a limit to where you can go, or you can go further when you're going with others, especially people doing something similar to what you're doing. And because it's their own terrain, they have better insights into the regulatory requirements and the like. So that's really a good one. And also, you also mentioned the custom procedure, currency differences. You mentioned a whole lot. Thank you so much for this impactful session. I'm sure our beneficiaries or our attendees actually took a whole lot of notes. I would now open the Q&A chat box now and start reading our questions. Please feel free to send in your questions in the Q&A if you have more questions for Mrs. Florence or Mrs. Oyeyemi. They're still on the session. I will start reading our questions now. So you still have the opportunity to type in your questions in the Q&A box for them to answer. So we have a question here. I think it's for Mrs. Ofonedu. I hope you are still on the session, ma. Hello, Mrs. Florence. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So we have a question for you. So Omolola Shonubi is asking for the consulate documents. Is that the Nigerian consulate in the destination country, or the consulate of that country in Nigeria that would verify the invoice?
Yeah, the consulate of that country in Nigeria will verify before it goes, yes.
Okay, so that goes your answer, Omolola. Then I also have a question from an anonymous attendee. How do I go about exporting my goods, especially when I don't have a customer out there, but it is a product that is needed?
How do you know it's needed when you don't have
a customer?
Needed, and you don't even know have a customer. You know it's needed. How? Well, I think I advise anybody who wants to get into export, like the other presenter has just said, you do your research very well. It's very important. You don't just export because others are exporting. You just do your thing the right way, and the rest is easy. Before you export, you can go to all this online. Go to Alibaba and 7Keys, all the rest. There are so many of them out there. But if you are doing, please be very, very careful. It's usually better if you have anybody in diaspora who can help you, at least the initial stage before you now hit the ground running on your own. It's very important. Don't just because somebody contacted you and say, I needed a trailer load of this, you go and borrow money and send something to where you don't know nobody. It's very important. Do your research very well. Don't just export because others are exporting. Please, that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma, for this feedback. So, to our anonymous attendee, you need to do your research. Don't just assume your product is needed. So, research is important. Mrs. Oyeyemi also mentioned that as well. So, Mrs. Florence, I know you had a list of things that could be exported. Someone is asking that can they export hair attachments?
Yes, why not? Yes.
Okay, so attachment is one of the products.
It does. No, it's not prohibited. It's exportable, yeah. Especially in African countries, it sells a lot. It does, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for that information. Another person wants to know if they can proceed to get certificates even as an enterprise.
No, you must upgrade to a limited liability company to be able to export legally. Not that you can do your briefcase export by taking your small thing and send to your relations out there. That is not export. Now you're just doing your thing. But when you really get into export business, that certificate will help you a lot. Please.
Okay, so you have to be a limited liability company to be able to export.
Correct, to be able to export.
Not legally, transport your goods to your family member. Export now.
Export now, yes.
Okay, thank you for that insight.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you very much.
So I have some questions here for you, Mrs. Oyeyemi. Okay. For everyone asking if you would get the hard copy or the soft copy of the presentation, please note that the presentation slides will be shared with you via Zoom tomorrow morning. By this time tomorrow morning, you would get an email from Zoom with the links to the presentation. And then it's also pre-recorded, so you would also be able to visit our LSETF YouTube channel for a replay so that you don't miss out on any key information that has been shared here today. Thank you. So Azizat would like to ask you, in a situation where my business is a sole enterprise, let's say I want to export processed catfish and I do not have boards, how do I go about it?
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying that you're still an enterprise. You would need to be set up as a limited liability company. It's a fundamental. And so you would need to change your structure to accommodate the new standard, which is being a limited liability company. I mean, if you're a limited liability company, you don't necessarily need to have a board of plenty people. You can still be a small business, but the truth is that if people are going to invest in your entity, collaborate with you, they want to see that you have the capacity. And the best way to show it is to show it through your people, through your finance, through your access to funds and your organizational structure. So you would need to grow. You need to groom, you need to grow, and make those changes.
Okay, thank you so much. Oyeyemi, please, can you reshare that link again for that export readiness course? And the name of the course, please. I have a good number of people requesting for that information again. Okay, while we go on, so many of these questions are still people with enterprise registration. They have mentioned already, the two facilitators have mentioned, you would need to upgrade to a limited liability company. So someone now is asking, how can I upgrade it to a limited, how can I upgrade an enterprise to a limited liability company?
It's simply by registering that at the CAC. You would take your documents to the CAC, submit it online. You can do it yourself, or you can get a lawyer
to do it for you.
Preferably get a lawyer to do it for you, so that if there are any challenges, they can help you with it. And then you get it done, and that's it. In less than 3 weeks, you would be registered.
Okay, so that answers all of our questions relating to being an enterprise. You cannot export as an enterprise. You have to be a registered limited liability company, and you can do the registration yourself, or you can use a lawyer for that service. So someone is asking, what is the name of the company that registers and provides contacts? Did anyone mention that?
Norbase. I put it in the chat room, Norbase.
Oh yes, I also even okay, Norbase is the name of the company. To Omolola Shonubi. Norbase is the name of the company that registers and provides contacts. And for those who are looking towards upgrading their skills, Oyeyemi has shared the link to the export readiness course. Feel free, and it's free. It's free as well, so feel free to upgrade your knowledge so that, you know, it's good if you also know it, not just employing someone who knows it, so that if they cannot bamboozle you, you know, you can't give what you don't have. So you need to always upskill yourself. It's really important, especially in this industry where there is a lot of regulatory changes. A lot of things happen like quickly, and so if you're not versed with this information, you might become liable, and that's not a good way to run your business. So we also have another question. Is it true that this is from Oyeyemi. Is it true that all exported products have to pass through the Nigerian Export Promotion Council? So, Mrs. Florence, someone wants to know if all exported products have to pass through your agency.
You don't need to pass through our agency. All you need is to have our certificate. You understand? It makes you exporting legally. Not that you can't carry your goods to anywhere you want to, but if you want to do a real export business that you get by your proceeds. Well, there is so much to gain in this export, but a lot of people don't know. Sometime last year, end of last year, about this time last year, a lot of people were giving grants, free money, also a lot of SMEs, and many of them didn't know. But you cannot get that SME if you cannot get a grant if you are not registered with Export Promotion Council. So many of them lost out. You understand? So when you register without any benefit that comes from government, you get from it. Yes, and we'll do a lot of programs. We can only reach out to you if you're registered with us, because your information we'll use in inviting you to have capacity building, we'll have seminar, we'll have workshop, or any kind of exhibition. So there is so much to gain than to lose. Yes.
Thank you for that information, Ma. Then Olumayowa Odetola wants to know that can we get pre-shipment export funds for newbies in exports? I think this, yes,
I think she just talked about it. There are export expansion grants
and all of that. Yes.
Export expansion grants, several that's in collaboration with different organizations, even what's it called, bilateral organizations affiliated with the UN. You have those kind of organizations collaborating with the Export Promotion Council to grant benefits. You know, not just the benefits come with, there's some that come like accelerators, right? So they train you, they connect you with different people in different markets, all of those. Then there's some that come as actual money, right, to fund your business. But then for you to be eligible, you must be proper. You must meet the track record. You must show that you are a proper business, registered, properly ordered. You have officers that are, I mean, you must show that you must not look like a fraud or an unserious business, right? You must have a track record that you can show. That's what would actually get you in the room. I mean, because it's a grant, you have to pitch for it. And that's why all of those points I was making are very important.
Thank you for that. So you need to do your research to know the kind of grants and opportunities that are available. And yeah, so I think that answers your question, Olumayowa Odetola. So I have, oh my God, the questions keep dropping in. We crave your indulgence. So
Once
this
the
question
pandemic
is from
please.
Mrs. Florence. Do we need all
Yes,
the,
please.
Aminat Lawal wants to know if they need all the clarifications stated by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council to export even within African territories through the free trade zone agreement.
Yeah, it is important for somebody to do the right thing. Because why it's important to do the right thing? You can't be carrying your goods from Nigeria to Togo. Let me use Togo, that is not far. And there is no proper identification. You don't have your packing, you don't have anything. Then how do you get your money back? There are so many things involved. Export business is about documentation. No document, you will lose your money, you will lose your goods, you will lose everything. But if properly documented, every other thing is easy. Because when it comes to litigation, like the lawyer rightly said, what will you use if you don't have a documentation to sue them? And how do you go about it? There's so much involved. So those your documents are what speaks for you. Because some people you are selling don't even know who you are. So it's your document that talks for you. So it's good to have all the documents straight up to be able to do things right.
Then also, is there a certain level of revenue before the any business person can register with the Nigerian Export Promotion Council or to start exporting?
No. So long as you have a limited liability company, that's our major
criteria.
thing that makes you to criteria that makes you to register. You have a limited liability company, or you come together as a cooperative or something, then you are good to go. How much money you have is in your pocket. We don't determine how much you have to be an exporter. That's the truth.
All right, thank you for that information, ma'am. We also have. Okay, this question is for from Yemisi Otokiti, and it's for Mrs. Oyeyemi. And it's for Mrs. Oyeyemi. Can Templars help get buyers or stores to supply?
Oh, I love her. So we don't do that. We don't do that. So, but I mean, collaborating today with companies across board is not so hard because you have the internet, you can do research, and both in Nigeria and in other countries, the NEPC is like a one-stop shop that helps you engage. So I know someone who's trying to set up in London, and she's using the NEPC as her connect pod. She's engaging them and then, helping with contacts in other countries, to help. And it's not like the NEPC has all of these contacts. It's a combination of the NEPC's status and your own homework, doing your research as to whether your product is available or authorized to be sold in whatever country you're targeting, right? Maybe there can be a phase 2 of this where we can actually have a map that talks about the kinds of products and the countries to which they're acceptable. Maybe that will be helpful, or maybe that's information that LSETF can collaborate with to provide to the attendees so they can look at it over time. We can't sit down here and say, okay, maize is allowed in Ghana, there are 195 countries in the world. That's too long. And even in Africa, if we're looking at Africa, there are 55 countries. They all have 55 different rules, different cultures, different requirements for import and export. So that's why the first rule is research, So let's continue on the more realistic discussions, right? And then maybe we'll see what we can do to give the attendees additional information or other resources that they can review to get some of the answers that they are asking, or to get answers to some of the questions that they are asking.
Thank you so much for this. And yeah, we may consider a part B for this, but that will definitely be next year because this is our final masterclass for the year. And yeah, since we've seen that a lot of people are interested to know more about exports, especially what kind of goods can I export to, into what country, it's something.
So I'm seeing and I think let me provide some help.
Okay.
So that list that Mrs. Ofonedu-Okafor shared is the list for Nigeria. But every country will have their own list as well. Yeah. So there's the export list for Nigeria. So if your product is not on that list, it means your product is exportable. But the question is to where? Do you understand? As I said at the beginning, if you want to export chewing gum to Singapore, you are setting yourself up for trouble because it is banned. Consumption there is banned. So you need, it is two ways. It's not just here. It's not just what happens here that matters. It is also the countries that you're targeting. So you need to look at what country has high potential for sales for the product I'm selling. You know, and that's how, for instance, some of our agricultural products are now being exported fully to certain countries, you know. So you can't just say, okay, is this here, is this here? If it is not on the Nigerian list, it may be on another country's list. And so you need to check.
Thank you, Oyeyemi. Thank you for that clarification, additional clarification. I also have questions as it relates to, okay, this is from Mrs. Florence. Olufunke is surprised that artifacts are prohibited. Does it also include artworks, painted, woven, carved, molded artwork?
Ask the question after I finished. You thought people will be taking, like some good artwork? No, they are not prohibited. Normal artwork that a lot of artists put up there, no. But there are some acts you cannot take out. But normal artwork, all this, some good artwork, all some in canvas and the rest of them, you can really buy them and take them away. Yeah, it's not all.
Okay, so that's clarified. It's not all artworks that are prohibited.
Prohibited, yes.
Okay. Oyeyemi, someone wants to know if they need all the documents mentioned to export to African.
So the African Free Trade Area is all the 55 countries, right? So it still boils down to which country you're going to. So you will now need to, remember I talked about the barriers. There are the tariff barriers, that is cost, like customs payments, the custom tariffs, say the levies, the taxes, all of those things. But then there's also non-tariff barriers. And these non-tariff barriers are the things that I mentioned, customs requirements, language. And because of that, it will vary from country to country. So it must be tailored. All of this is general information. You're still going to sit down and say, okay, I'm taking to Ghana, and this is what is required in Ghana. I'm taking to Senegal. This is what's required in Senegal. Do you understand? It's not going to be, there is an agreement that has set guidelines for everyone, right? Which is the African Free Trade Agreement. It sets guidelines for everyone. It requires minimum standards. You know, for instance, there should be no levies on certain products. There should be no tariffs and you know, all these customs duties that we pay. There are some products that should not even have custom duties, but not all countries have adopted it. In fact, about 11 countries are yet to agree to these agreements, right? So it is still country specific, situation specific.
Thank you, Oyeyemi, for that information. Okay, so to register with Nigerian Export Promotion Council, people want to know what are the requirements, how do they register? This is for Mrs. Florence.
Like from my slide, you see our website, www.nepc.gov.ng. You go that online, see the registration procedure, step-by-step procedure of how you can do your registration. But you must have a limited liability company to be eligible to do that registration. And it's just 13,500. It's not expensive. You can do it from wherever you are. It's not something you have to look for anybody in my office to do it for you. Just enter the website, have your papers straight. After the registration, you print the certificate yourself. You don't need to come looking for us. You print it and you have your certificate. You are good to go for your export business.
So, so our attendees, it's a DIY era we're in. You can do it yourself. Just visit the website. Just visit the website, and as long as you, it's stated in English and you understand English, you should be able to read it. And the criteria is you must be a limited liability company. So yes. So that answers your question. You can do the registration yourself. I'll be sharing the presentation slides that have the website address. So you can do it yourself and you get your certificates. You don't need a human interface. All this can be done by yourself. For now,
Taiwo, someone is asking, can a foreign registered company apply for the export NEPC? No. You're coming, it's the foreign is that person is no longer exporting because person is not in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, yes.
Oh yeah, I've seen the question. So Olu, your question has been answered. If you're ready, can a foreign registered company apply for the export? No, because you're already an international organization. It's for Nigerian businesses. So that answers your question. Thank you. Okay, so Oyeyemi Ogundikbe wants to know, at a time the limited liability had to have in its memorandum something that states export in some manner. Is that still a condition?
Yes.
We didn't hear you.
If your name at the yes, I said yes. If your from them. Okay. Yes, like okay. Yes. If you want that export clause, because we're talking of export here. If you don't have export clause, how then do we know that you are going to do export? It must be on your MEMAT, that memorandum and article of association of your company. That is what tells you really want to do export. That is even what we need on that part of your MEMAT. That's what we need on that page. Not all your MEMAT is the page that has that clause of export clause. That's what we need. Thank you. I hope we're rounding up because I have another meeting to attend. Please.
Yes, we are getting to close. Thank you, Ma. Thank you. I would be speeding up the questions. So there's also, people want to know, are gemstones allowed for export? What about dry pepper?
Well, it depends on the kind of dry pepper. When you start the business, you will know what is doable and what is not doable. It's not saying it here that you know whether I need to export this or I need to export that. When you do, dry pepper can be exported, but how did you package the dry pepper to be able to export it? That is the question. So it's for dry pepper is exported. Gemstones, they are all exported food products. So it's all in your hands to package it well. Yeah.
So packaging is very important to our attendees, yes, and that was also mentioned in the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So someone wants to know, what is Nigerian Export Promotion Council doing to reduce the turnaround time at the ports?
I mentioned, the person asking this question, I'm sure wasn't listening. I told you we have the domestic export warehouses, one-stop shop, where all your goods will go. That one-stop shop will take over everything. You don't need to start looking for custom or looking for quarantine or looking for sun or NAVDAC. Everybody will be at the same place. So as soon as you get your goods get there, and everybody checks it, your goods will move straight to the port. No more delay on the road.
I think we've lost her for some minutes. Hello, Mrs. Florence. Okay, I have one more question for you before you take your leave. Thank you so much for your expertise and time thus far. I have one more question, and it relates to packaging. In your presentation, you mentioned primary packaging, secondary, tertiary package. So people want to know, they want to understand that better, and they also want to know how they can go about it. For instance, ginger, bitter cola, and other kind of products in that.
I don't think you need to package bitter cola. There is a way bitter cola. Bitter cola is not. Bitter cola is almost like a fruit. It's like you don't export bitter cola just like you package it. So you use primary packaging. That is to say, something where you can package where if you have air. You understand? You know, there is a place you package some things. It will spoil the goods. But like ginger, not ginger, bitter cola, for instance. You use something where it will have air. The kind of packaging, the kind of carton. If you get to the NACO, any goods you're taking out, when you get to NACO, they will show you what you need and how you are packaging it to take it to whatever country. Like those who take vegetable outside the country. When you get to NACO, they use a kind of carton that is open and they put it in an area that is a kind of fridge, not normal fridge, a kind of fridge that will keep it until it gets to its destination. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so I have second to the last question for you, Ma, from anonymous attendees. Okay, so someone said, okay, I think this is for Oyeyemi as well as for Mrs. Florence. As a registered real estate company with CAC certificate, how do I attach export business, or do I need to do another CAC?
No,
and then
you don't need to do another. You just need to change your objects. Just change your objects at the CAC. It's a simple process.
Okay, so you don't need to register another.
No. No.
All right, thank you. Then, Mrs. Ofonedu, this question is for you. I want to ask for the requirements documentation to export local food items to UK and US aside the export certificate.
If you are exporting food, you know you have to go to NAVDAC. If it's something that is manufactured, you have to go to SUN, not just export certificate.
And it depends on what the food is. I think that's what everybody needs to know.
Yes, and if it's like vegetable, you must get quarantine, not just export certificate and you see you have export, you carry your things. No. All the bodies that are involved, if it's agriculture, you know where to go. If it's manufacturing, you know who to go to. If it's vegetable, you know who to go to. So that it makes it easy for you, not just getting an export certificate. It's not enough. Those bodies also have to certify whatever goods you are exporting. Thank you.
Okay, I think Oyeyemi can spare us another like 5 minutes to answer the remaining questions, but thank you so much, Mrs. Florence. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And am I permitted to share your PowerPoint presentation with the attendees before you?
Why not?
Okay, that's great. So you all will be getting the PowerPoint presentation, and then I will still continue with the question and answers with Oyeyemi.
I can go now.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, ma.
Thank you too. Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah.
So for the attendee asking to know how they can acquire all the knowledge to start an exporting business, that was why Oyeyemi shared the link to a course where they would guide you on all what you need to know when you want to start up a business that wants to export some of its products. So that answers that question. I would be answering the question for our YouTube channel. I will be posting it on the chat room so that you can have a replay of this session, so that you don't forget any of the information that has been passed. I've shared the YouTube link, so feel free to rewatch the sessions, and yeah, that answers that. How do I supply my goods when I don't even have anyone in the intended country to export to? Do your research.
You answered that question. I think most of the questions here are similar to what we've already answered. And I think maybe the way to wrap up is just to give this final point. These conversations we've had today are just the general rules to let you understand what the requirements in general are. You will still need to look at your product, your specific product, your specific space, the packaging. Someone was talking about primary and secondary packaging. Primary packaging is the main packaging. So you have Cerelac. I mean, forgive me for mentioning a brand, but yeah, we all know the brand. It's in a tin, but then it can also come in a box, another box, a tin in the box, you know. So how many packages? You have an iPhone that has a main package and then a big box, you know. There are rules that guide all of these things, but there's no one rule that guides everything. We're 79 still on the call. If each one of us is with a product, that product will have specific rules, you know. That's why the first thing I said was research. You know, you need to specify what is particularly applicable to your own product. So we can sit here and call out the products and list all the list and names, but that's not going to be productive. You know, it's impossible for me to give answers or anyone to give answers here. So I think that's it.
So that brings us to a close of this session. Thank you so much. Thank you for this session, for honoring our invitation.
Bye-bye, everybody.
All right, then. Do enjoy the rest of it and happy holiday.
You too.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.